The door slams. The messages stop. The person who promised to love you has broken you into pieces. And here you are, staring at your phone, wondering if you should try again. We all know that feeling, that pull back towards someone who shattered our heart, that voice inside saying, maybe this time will be different. It never is. Going back to someone who broke you isn't just a bad decision. It's a form of self-betrayal. It tells the universe you don't believe you deserve better. It whispers to your soul that broken love is all you can hope for. But you were made for more than recycled promises and repeated pain. This isn't just about relationships. This is about your worth, your future, your ability to trust yourself when everything feels uncertain. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that urge to return feels so powerful, and why resisting it is the most important choice you'll ever make for yourself. The hardest truth about healing is that it happens in the spaces where they aren't. The strongest version of you exists beyond the shadow of someone who couldn't see your value. Your healing starts now. Your future is waiting, and it begins with understanding why you must never go back. Trust isn't just given freely. It must be earned through consistent actions over time. Think of trust as a beautiful glass bridge between two people. Once it breaks, putting those pieces back together leaves visible cracks. Those fractures never truly disappear. When someone breaks your trust, they reveal something fundamental about their character, not just a mistake, but a window into how they handle difficult situations, how they process their own needs versus yours, how they value what you've built together. Broken trust changes your brain chemistry. Each betrayal creates neural pathways of doubt. Your body physically prepares for pain when that person enters your space again. This isn't weakness. It's self-protection. Your nervous system remembers what your heart tries to forget. Science tells us rebuilding trust requires approximately 5 positive interactions to counterbalance just one negative event. The math simply doesn't work in favor of returning to someone who's hurt you multiple times. The deficit becomes too great to overcome. Many people mistake temporary better behavior for genuine change. Real transformation takes years of consistent work, usually with professional help and deep self-reflection. Most people who break others don't commit to this level of painful self-examination. Trust breaks in an instant but rebuilds in slow motion. While you wait for that rebuilding, you exist in a state of constant vigilance, checking messages, analyzing tone, looking for signs of the next betrayal. This hypervigilance drains your energy that could be directed toward growth and joy. Going back creates a dangerous new pattern. It teaches the other person that breaking you has no real consequences. Each return weakens your boundaries further. What was once unacceptable slowly becomes your normal baseline of treatment. The painful truth is that trust, once severely damaged, rarely returns to its original strength. The relationship becomes something different, something shaped by the history of its fractures, something that requires constant maintenance just to function at a basic level. None of this means people can't change. They absolutely can. But change happens through consequences, not through being rewarded with your return. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both of you is to walk away. Going back to someone who broke you sends a powerful message, not to them, but to yourself. It whispers, "This is what I believe I deserve." Each time you return, this message gets louder until it drowns out your inner voice that once knew better. Self-worth erodes slowly, then all at once. First come small compromises, overlooking minor disrespects, swallowing valid concerns, minimizing red flags. Soon these compromises become automatic. What once shocked you barely registers as wrong. Most people don't realize how radically their standards have shifted until they're accepting behavior they would have found completely unacceptable before. This shifting baseline happens beneath conscious awareness, making it particularly dangerous. Brain science explains this phenomenon clearly. Each return activates reward pathways similar to addiction. Brief moments of reconciliation trigger dopamine rushes that temporarily mask underlying damage. These chemical responses make logical decision making nearly impossible. Friends notice changes first. They see how you shrink in that person's presence, how you check their reactions before speaking, how you've started apologizing for things that aren't your fault. While you're adapting to lower standards, those who love you watch with growing concern. Research shows repeated rejection from the same source creates something called learned helplessness, a psychological state where you stop believing in your ability to change your circumstances. This helplessness spills into other areas of life, affecting career choices, friendships, and daily confidence. Identity transformation follows. You become someone who accommodates harm rather than someone who expects respect. This new identity forms protective layers around wounded parts, but prevents authentic connection with others and yourself. Time invested becomes another trap. After returning multiple times, leaving feels like admitting failure. I've already put so much into this becomes reason enough to continue despite mounting evidence it's damaging your core self. Silent self-betrayal cuts deepest. Each time you override your intuition that screams, "This isn't right," trust in yourself erodes. Eventually, you stop hearing that inner warning system altogether. Loss of this internal compass creates vulnerability that extends far beyond this single relationship. Maya Angelou said it best: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. This wisdom isn't just poetic, it's practical protection for your heart and future. Actions reveal truth that words can easily hide. Patterns tell stories words never could. Someone might promise change hundreds of times while repeating exactly the same harmful behaviors. Those behaviors aren't accidents or anomalies. They're revelations of character, priorities, and capacities. Most people desperately want to believe explanations over evidence. Explanations feel good. They offer hope and seemingly simple solutions. Evidence feels cold and final, but evidence doesn't lie, manipulate, or make empty promises about tomorrow. Breaking someone isn't usually a single event, but a series of choices. Choices to prioritize immediate wants over another's well-being. Choices to avoid difficult self-reflection. Choices to blame circumstances rather than taking responsibility. These choices reveal fundamental values. People who break others often display remarkable consistency, different relationships, similar outcomes, different promises, same disappointments, different apologies, identical aftermath. This consistency isn't coincidence. It's character expressing itself repeatedly. Crisis reveals what comfort conceals. Pay special attention to how someone behaves under pressure, when things don't go their way, or when they don't get what they want immediately. These moments of stress strip away social masks and show what lies beneath. Words cost nothing. Genuine change requires tremendous effort, professional help, accountability systems, and most importantly, time. Real transformation takes years, not the days or weeks someone might give before returning to old patterns. Many return to relationships hoping the person has learned their lesson, but pain alone rarely teaches lasting lessons. Accountability, consequences, and committed personal work create change. Without these elements, painful cycles simply repeat with increasing intensity. Believing someone's potential over their proven behavior creates dangerous vulnerability. Potential exists in everyone. Character is what someone does with that potential when no one's watching, when it's inconvenient, or when it requires sacrifice. Most painful of all, when someone repeatedly hurts you, they're showing exactly how much pain they believe you deserve to bear. Not through their tearful apologies, but through their consistent actions and the damage they're willing to inflict again and again. Toxic relationships follow predictable patterns. Tension builds slowly, small criticisms, subtle distance, growing irritability. Then comes the breaking point, a betrayal, an explosion of anger, cruel words that can't be unsaid. Next, desperate reconciliation. Grand apologies, promises of change, brief periods of perfect behavior. This honeymoon phase feels magical. Problems seem solved. Hope returns. Both people believe things will be different this time, but without fundamental change, tensions begin building again. And the cycle continues, usually growing shorter between breaking points. Each cycle leaves emotional scar tissue. What hurt terribly the first time becomes somehow normal by the fifth or sixth. Nervous systems adapt to chaos, creating a distorted sense that drama equals passion. Calm, healthy relationships start feeling boring by comparison. Trauma bonding creates powerful chemical attachments. During reconciliation phases, the brain releases oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins, creating feelings similar to addiction. Breaking this cycle becomes physiologically difficult, not just emotionally challenging. Many mistake this intense biochemical response for love. In reality, it's the brain's response to intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive reward pattern possible. Getting unpredictable positive responses creates stronger attachment than consistent positive treatment. Each return resets the power dynamic. The person who caused harm learns they don't need to sustain better behavior. Temporary improvements are enough. Meanwhile, standards continue dropping for the person returning, creating dangerous tolerance for increasingly harmful actions. Children exposed to these cycles develop disturbed attachment patterns. They learn that love and pain are inseparable, that intensity equals importance, that promises matter more than patterns. These lessons follow them into adulthood, often repeating across generations. Breaking cycles requires recognizing them first. Most people in repetitive harmful relationships don't see the pattern clearly. They focus on individual incidents rather than the overall structure of the relationship. This narrow focus makes escape much harder. Time measures these cycles in emotional damage, not just days. What takes minutes to inflict might require years to heal. Each return to the cycle multiplies recovery time, sometimes creating wounds too deep for complete healing. Most painful of all, these cycles don't just happen to us. We become active participants. Our responses become predictable parts of the pattern. Only by stepping completely out of the dance can we see its choreography clearly and choose something entirely different. Missing someone who broke you requires careful examination. Often, what feels like longing for a specific person is actually longing for basic human needs: connection, touch, routine, certainty, or simply not being alone, these universal needs can attach themselves to harmful people simply because they once fulfilled them. Brain chemistry complicates this distinction further. Attachment forms regardless of treatment quality. Studies show people bond strongly even to those who harm them, a phenomenon observed in hostage situations, abusive relationships, and toxic workplaces. This biological attachment doesn't indicate healthy love. Compare what you miss to what you experienced. Most people miss an idealized version of the relationship, early golden periods, rare perfect moments, or potential never realized. This selective memory ignores pain that became your daily reality. Physical intimacy creates powerful bonds through hormones like oxytocin. These chemical connections persist long after emotional ties should logically break. Bodies remember pleasure, while minds try to forget pain, creating confusing internal conflicts about returning. Relationship gaps leave identity vacuums. Parts of self-definition tied to being someone's partner suddenly disappear. This identity loss often hurts more than missing the actual person. What feels like missing them is really missing who you were with them or who you hope to become. Social structures change after separation. Friend groups shift, family connections alter, daily routines transform. Many mistake grief over these peripheral losses for grief about the central relationship. The ecosystem around a relationship often pulls people back as strongly as the relationship itself. Future fantasies die alongside relationships. Dreams of holidays together, growing old together, sharing life milestones, these anticipated futures vanish suddenly. Grieving potential futures feels similar to missing an actual person, but requires different healing approaches. External validation becomes suddenly scarce. Even harmful relationships provide mirrors reflecting back some version of ourselves. Without these reflections, many feel invisible or unreal. This missing validation gets mistaken for missing the validator. Most revealing is how quickly missing someone fades when needs get met elsewhere. New friendships, supportive community, self-care practices, or healthy romantic connections often dissolve supposed longing for someone who caused harm, proving what was missed wasn't truly them at all. Healing requires space. Distance isn't just helpful, it's necessary for fundamental rewiring of thought patterns, emotional responses, and self-perception. Proximity to someone who broke you keeps wounds perpetually reopened, preventing essential healing processes from even beginning. Perspective only comes with separation. While entangled with someone harmful, reality becomes distorted. What's abnormal seems normal. What's unacceptable becomes tolerated. Only by stepping completely away does clarity return about how deeply damaging the situation truly was. Neural pathways form based on repeated experiences. Remaining near someone who hurt you reinforces existing neural connections related to that pain. Creating new, healthier pathways requires different inputs entirely. New environments, safe relationships, and trauma-informed support systems. Personal growth often threatens unhealthy relationships. As someone begins healing, setting boundaries, and requiring better treatment, partners invested in control frequently escalate harmful behaviors to maintain dominance. True growth becomes impossible within this dynamic. Identity reclamation happens gradually in protected spaces. Pieces of authentic self abandoned during harmful relationships return slowly when safe to exist again. This delicate reassembly process cannot occur while still adjusting to someone else's expectations and reactions. Many discover shocking truths after separation. Behaviors normalized within the relationship suddenly appear clearly abusive or manipulative when described to therapists or friends. This crucial perspective shift rarely happens while still emotionally enmeshed. Growth requires brutal honesty, impossible to achieve near someone invested in maintaining illusions. Questions about personal responsibility, patterns of attraction, warning signs ignored. These essential reflections feel too threatening while still protecting the relationship or the other person's feelings. Time alone allows calibration of internal warning systems. After repeatedly overriding intuition to maintain harmony, many lose touch with gut feelings alerting them to danger. Rebuilding this internal protection requires quiet attention to bodily responses without immediate dismissal. New skills develop only through practice in safe environments. Assertiveness, boundary setting, emotional regulation. These capabilities, essential for future healthy relationships, must be cultivated gradually without fear of triggering harmful reactions from previous partners. Distance reveals capabilities hidden by harmful dynamics. Many discover unexpected strength, creativity, joy, and resilience only after complete separation. These revelations cannot emerge while energy remains focused on managing someone else's emotions or navigating unpredictable responses. Familiarity exerts powerful gravitational pull even toward painful situations. Known pain feels safer than unknown possibilities. Brains evolved to prefer predictable threats over uncertainty, a survival mechanism now working against emotional well-being in modern relationships. Most people underestimate how strongly comfort and routine influence their decisions. Shared history creates countless invisible threads, inside jokes, familiar routines, mutual friends, memorized preferences. These seemingly small connections collectively form bonds stronger than love itself. Loneliness amplifies familiar comfort. Empty evening hours stretch endlessly. Quiet mornings without familiar sounds become unbearable. In these hollow spaces, even toxic familiarity beckons like shelter during storms. Logic disappears against this emotional weather. Research shows decision fatigue plays significant role in returns to harmful relationships. Building new life requires hundreds of small choices daily: where to go, what to do, how to spend time, who to become. Exhausted by these constant decisions, many retreat to relationships where choices feel limited but clear. Fear disguises itself as nostalgia. Memories selectively filter toward positive moments, creating highlight reels that bear little resemblance to daily reality previously experienced. This distorted remembering makes returning seem reasonable despite overwhelming evidence against it. Identity becomes entangled with relationship roles. Breaking free means confronting terrifying questions. Who am I without this relationship? What do I actually enjoy? What values are truly mine versus adopted to maintain peace? Many return simply to avoid this existential discomfort. Misinterpreting withdrawal symptoms creates dangerous confusion. Physical anxiety, sleep disturbances, appetite changes. These normal responses to relationship endings feel catastrophic. Many mistake these temporary withdrawal pains for evidence they made wrong choice in leaving. Society reinforces comfort seeking over growth. Cultural narratives praise fighting for relationships regardless of cost. Few stories celebrate difficult endings that lead to necessary transformation. This messaging creates guilt around choosing personal well-being over familiar suffering. Comfort zones expand to include dysfunction. Bodies adapt to stress hormones. Hypervigilance becomes normal operating state. Walking on eggshells feels like reasonable accommodation. This adapted comfort within dysfunction often feels safer than unfamiliar health. Brain chemistry forms powerful comfort associations. Places, songs, foods, holidays, these triggers activate memories and longing through no conscious choice. These physiological responses create illusion of deep connection when often just signaling familiar neural pathways. Moving forward creates space for possibilities previously invisible. Energy once consumed by relationship drama becomes available for dreams long abandoned. Creative pursuits, career aspirations, educational goals, and personal passions suddenly seem possible again rather than distant fantasies. New relationships form based on health rather than trauma bonds. Connections built after healing attract different types of people, those who value boundaries, communicate clearly, and respect autonomy. These healthier relationships feel unfamiliar at first, calmer, more stable, less intense, but ultimately more fulfilling. Self-trust rebuilds slowly through keeping promises to yourself. Small daily choices accumulate, choosing activities that bring joy, setting boundaries that protect peace, speaking truths previously swallowed. Each self-honoring choice strengthens internal authority weakened by harmful relationships. Emotional range expands beyond survival states. Many discover access to subtle feelings long numbed, genuine contentment, playfulness, wonder, creative flow. These emotional experiences remain largely inaccessible while nervous systems operate in constant threat response mode. Resilience develops through navigating life's challenges independently. Each obstacle overcome alone builds confidence that future difficulties can be handled without returning to harmful support systems. This growing self-efficacy becomes protective against future exploitation. Physical health often improves dramatically. Sleep deepens, immune function strengthens, chronic pain diminishes, digestion normalizes. Bodies previously allocating resources toward managing relationship stress redirect energy toward optimal functioning and repair. Authentic connections with others deepen. Relationships based on convenience or shared dysfunction fade while meaningful connections strengthen. Many discover friends remained distant during harmful relationships because witnessing ongoing pain became too difficult. Financial resources previously drained by relationship chaos become available for stability and growth. Money spent managing crises, replacing damaged items, or compensating for others' irresponsibility redirects toward education, experiences, security, and building assets. Decision-making simplifies without conflicting priorities. Clarity emerges about personal values and needs once no longer constantly compromised for relationship peace. This alignment between actions and authentic self creates profound sense of integrity previously impossible. Future vision expands beyond immediate survival. Long-term planning becomes possible again, not just for next week, but for years ahead. This extended time horizon allows building foundation for lasting fulfillment rather than constantly managing immediate relationship crises. Breaking free takes courage few talk about. Standing alone feels terrifying until you realize you've been carrying the weight of two people, yourself and someone who repeatedly hurt you. That weight dropping feels like flying. You deserve someone who never makes you question your worth, who treats your heart with gentle hands, who sees your scars as sacred rather than weaknesses to exploit, who builds you up instead of breaking you down. Every day you stay separated is a vote for your future self, a declaration that pain doesn't get to be your forever story, a promise that what broke you doesn't get to keep breaking you. The person who returns to someone who broke them isn't showing loyalty. They're showing fear. Fear that nothing better exists. Fear that being alone means being nothing. Fear that past pain is safer than future uncertainty. Choose courage over comfort. Choose growth over familiarity. Choose yourself over someone who didn't choose you when it mattered most. If this message resonated with you today, hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more content that helps you build the life you truly deserve. Your journey matters, and we're honored to be part of it.